The Galactic Military Academy floated in the darkness of space, like a small metal moon. It was built on Station Orion 7, far from any planet, far from any sun. Here, the best young soldiers from 32 different alien species came to learn how to fight, how to lead, and how to win wars. The halls were always bright. The floors were always clean. The windows showed a million stars, and the cadets walked through those halls like they owned the universe. They were tall and proud. They came from powerful families. They believed they were special. None of them noticed the old human with the mop. His name was Daniel Webb. He was 53 years old, and his hair had turned gray at the edges. His hands were rough from years of work. Every morning at 4 o'clock, when the station was quiet and dark, he pushed his cleaning cart through the empty corridors. He mopped the floors. He wiped the windows. He fixed the small things that broke during the day. To the cadets, he was nobody. To the instructors, he was just a human janitor. Most of them did not even know his name. Earth had joined the Galactic Confederation only 18 years ago. In the eyes of the older species, humans were still new. Still primitive. Still weak. They were good for simple jobs, nothing more. A human could clean floors. A human could carry boxes. But a human could never be a soldier, a leader, or a hero. Daniel never argued with this. He never complained. He just did his work and stayed quiet. His cart had a squeaky wheel. He had fixed it many times, but the squeak always came back. Sometimes he thought the squeak was the only sound he made all day. Push, squeak. Push, squeak. Through the training halls, past the combat simulators, around the great library with its thousands of glowing screens. The other workers on the station were mostly robots. Small cleaning drones that buzzed through the air, polishing surfaces and collecting dust. But some jobs needed human hands. Some problems needed human thinking. When a door got stuck, Daniel fixed it. When a power cable sparked, Daniel replaced it. When the recycling system made strange noises, Daniel found the broken part and made it work again. He was useful. That was enough for him. At night, when his shift was over, Daniel returned to his small room in the lower levels of the station. The room had a bed, a desk, and a tiny window that showed the stars. He did not have many things. A few books, a photograph of Earth, a small plant that he watered every day. He liked the quiet. He liked being alone. But sometimes the quiet was broken. There was one cadet who talked to him. Her name was Emily Torres, and she was 19 years old. She had brown skin and dark hair that she kept tied back in a tight braid. She was the only human student at the academy, and Daniel could see the loneliness in her eyes. Emily studied harder than anyone else. She stayed late in the library every night, reading and practicing and trying to catch up. The other cadets had been trained since childhood. Their species had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Emily had grown up on Earth, in a city called New Chicago, where the biggest danger was traffic. She was always behind, always struggling, always alone. One night, Daniel was cleaning the library windows when Emily looked up from her work. "Mr. Webb," she said. Her voice was tired. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel stopped his cleaning. "Of course. Do you ever feel like you don't belong here?" It was a simple question, but Daniel could hear the pain behind it. He had heard that same pain in many voices over the years. The pain of being different. The pain of being small in a universe that did not care. He put down his cloth and looked at her. "Belonging is not something they give you, Emily. It is something you decide for yourself." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you are here. You are working. You are trying." He pointed at the stars outside the window. "All those species out there, they have been flying through space for a long time. But we are new. We are learning. And that is not weakness. That is strength. Emily shook her head. They don't see it that way. They look at me like I'm a bug. Like I'm something they stepped on by accident. Let them look, Daniel said. Their eyes are not your eyes. Their thoughts are not your thoughts. You know who you are. That is the only thing that matters. Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, just a little. You're pretty smart for a janitor. Daniel smiled back. I read a lot of books. He picked up his cloth and went back to cleaning. Emily went back to her studying. The library was silent again, except for the soft hum of the machines and the distant stars burning in the dark. Daniel did not tell her the truth. He did not tell her that he understood her pain better than she could imagine. He did not tell her about the nightmares that still woke him up at night, or the memories that he tried so hard to forget. He was just a janitor now. That was the life he had chosen. The other life, the life before, was buried deep in the past. He had promised himself that it would stay there. But promises are hard to keep. As he cleaned, Daniel's hand brushed against his throat. There, hidden under the collar of his uniform, was a small tattoo. 3 circles, one inside the other, with a single line cutting through them all. The ink was old and faded. Most people never noticed it. But the tattoo was still there. And so were the memories. Daniel pushed his cart toward the door. The wheels squeaked. The lights hummed. And somewhere in the depths of the station, something was about to change. He did not know it yet. But the past was coming for him. It always did. For now, he was just a quiet human janitor. A man who cleaned floors and fixed broken things. A man who talked to lonely students and watched the stars. But he had not always been this man. And soon, everyone would remember who he used to be. The corvins were a reptile species. They had green scales, yellow eyes, and teeth like knives. They stood 7 feet tall and had claws that could tear through metal. For 300 years, their empire had ruled half the galaxy. Their soldiers were famous. Their generals were legends. Their name made other species tremble. Victor Thresh was the pride of his family. His grandfather had been an admiral. His father was a general. His mother commanded a fleet of warships. Victor himself was the best student at the academy. He was strong, fast, smart, and cruel. He also hated humans. Every time Emily walked past him in the corridor, Victor would speak loudly to his friends. "Look at the little earth monkey," he would say. "Do you think it knows any tricks?" His friends would laugh. Other cadets would look away. Nobody wanted to make Victor angry. Emily tried to ignore it. She kept her head down. She focused on her work. She told herself that words could not hurt her, but words can hurt. They cut slowly like a dull knife, leaving wounds that do not bleed but never heal. One evening, Emily went to Training Hall 7. It was a large room with padded floors and practice weapons on the walls. Cadets used it to learn hand-to-hand combat. Emily had been struggling in her combat classes. While other students had trained since childhood, she was still learning basic moves. She wanted to practice alone. She wanted to get better without anyone watching. Without anyone laughing. The hall was empty when she arrived. She picked up a training staff and began to practice. Strike, block, spin, strike again. Her muscles ached. Her breath came fast. But she kept going. She did not hear the door open behind her. Victor Thresh walked into the hall with 2 of his friends. They were corvins like him, tall and green and mean. Their yellow eyes found Emily, and their mouths curved into ugly smiles. Well, Victor said. The little monkey is trying to fight. Emily lowered her staff. Her heart began to pound. I was just leaving. No, you are not. Victor stepped closer. His friends spread out, blocking the exits. We have been watching you, human. You think you belong here. You think you can train with real soldiers. I don't want trouble, Emily said. She kept her voice steady, but her hands were shaking. Trouble? Victor laughed. It was a cold, hissing sound. We just want to see what humans are made of. We want to see if you break as easily as we think. He moved toward her. His claws came out, long and sharp and black. Emily backed against the wall. There was nowhere to run. Nobody to help. She raised her staff, knowing it would do nothing against those claws. Then she heard it. A small sound. A familiar sound. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The cleaning cart rolled into the doorway. Daniel Webb stood behind it, mop in hand, his face calm and blank. He wore his gray janitor uniform. His hair was messy. His eyes looked tired. He looked like nothing. He looked like nobody. Pardon me, he said quietly. I need to clean this hall. Victor turned around slowly. His yellow eyes narrowed. What did you say? I need to clean this hall, Daniel repeated. He pushed his cart forward and began to mop near the entrance. His movements were slow and steady. He did not look at Victor. He did not look at anyone. You dare interrupt me? Victor's voice was soft and dangerous. You dare speak to me, human? Just doing my job, sir. Victor walked toward Daniel. His friends followed. Emily pressed herself against the wall, frozen with fear. Do you know who I am? Victor stood over Daniel, his shadow blocking the light. Do you know what I can do to you? Daniel wrung out his mop. Water dripped into the bucket. Drip, drip, drip. I know who you are, cadet. Then you know that I could tear you apart right now. I could kill you, and nobody would care. You are nothing. You are less than nothing. Daniel looked up. His eyes met Victor's. Something passed between them. Something that Emily could not understand. Daniel's face did not change. His expression stayed calm. But something in his eyes made Victor hesitate. Then Victor's gaze moved down. Down to Daniel's throat. Down to the collar of his uniform, which had shifted slightly when he raised his head. There was a tattoo there. Small and faded. 3 circles with a line through them. Old ink on old skin. Victor's face changed. The color drained from his scales. His green skin turned gray. His yellow eyes went wide. His claws retracted so fast that Emily heard them click. That mark, Victor whispered. His voice shook. That is not possible. Daniel said nothing. He simply looked at Victor with those calm, tired eyes. It cannot be, Victor said. You cannot be one of them. They are all dead. They are all gone. I am just a janitor, Daniel said softly. Now, if you will excuse me, I have work to do. Victor stepped back. His whole body was trembling. He looked at Daniel like he was looking at a ghost. Like he was looking at something from his worst nightmares. We are leaving, Victor said to his friends. His voice cracked. Now, they left. They almost ran. The door slammed shut behind them, and the training hall was silent. Emily stared at Daniel. Her mouth was open. Her mind was spinning. What just happened? She asked, What is that tattoo? Why was he so scared? Daniel picked up his mop. He did not look at her. You should get some rest, Emily. You have early classes tomorrow. But Mr. Webb, I need to know. What are you? Who are you? Daniel pushed his cart toward the door. The wheels squeaked. He paused at the threshold and looked back at her. Some questions are better left unanswered, he said. Trust me on this. Then he was gone. The door closed. Emily was alone in the training hall, surrounded by practice weapons and padded floors and a million questions that nobody would answer. She looked at her shaking hands. She thought about Victor's face, the fear in his eyes, the way he had trembled like a child seeing a monster, What could make a Corvan warrior afraid? What could be hidden under the skin of a quiet old janitor? Emily did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about 3 circles and a single line, thinking about the man who cleaned floors and fixed broken things, thinking about the secret that had made an empire tremble. Emily could not forget what she had seen. The next morning, she went to the academy library before her first class. She sat at a computer terminal and typed in a search. 3 circles, 1 line, symbol, tattoo. Nothing came up. She tried again. Human military symbols, old earth marks, secret signs, still nothing. She searched for hours. She looked in history databases. She looked in military records. She looked in old news reports. Every time she got close to something, the screen would flash red. Classified, restricted, access denied. Whatever this symbol was, someone had tried very hard to hide it. Emily needed help. She needed someone who knew about Earth's history, someone she could trust. There was only one person she could think of. Commander Grace Morrison was the Academy's only human instructor. She was 50 years old, with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. She taught a class called Sci-Fi, which was the study of how different species had interacted over time. She was one of the few humans who had earned real respect in the Confederation. Emily found her in her office during lunch break. The door was open, so she knocked on the frame. "Commander Morrison, do you have a minute?" Morrison looked up from her desk. She had been reading something on her screen. "Emily, come in." "Is something wrong?" Emily stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Her heart was beating fast. She pulled out her tablet and opened the drawing she had made. "I saw this symbol last night," she said, "on someone's neck. I have been trying to find out what it means, but everything is classified." She showed Morrison the tablet. 3 circles, 1 line. Morrison's face went very still. Her hand, which had been reaching for a coffee cup, stopped in midair. For a long moment, she did not move at all. "Where did you see this?" Her voice was quiet and tight. "On the janitor, Mr. Webb. It is tattooed on his throat." Morrison set down her cup very slowly. She stood up and walked to her office door. She looked outside, checking the corridor. Then she closed the door and locked it. When she turned back to Emily, her face was pale. "Emily, I need you to listen to me very carefully. This symbol is not something you should ask about. Not here, not anywhere. Do you understand?" "No," Emily said. "I do not understand. That is why I am asking you." Morrison was quiet for a long time. She looked at Emily with something like fear in her eyes. Then she sighed and sat down. "What I am about to tell you is not in any history book. It is not taught in any school. Most people in the Confederation pretend it never happened." She paused. "Have you heard of the border conflicts?" Emily nodded. "A small war before Earth joined the Confederation. A few battles, nothing major. That is the official story." Morrison shook her head. "The truth is very different." She leaned forward. 20 years ago, the Corvan Empire decided to conquer Earth. They thought it would be easy. Humans were primitive. Humans were weak. Humans had no real weapons, no real ships, no real soldiers. The Corvans sent their 3rd fleet to take our planet. How big was the 3rd fleet? 40,000 warships. 2 million soldiers. It was the largest invasion force in Corvan history. Emily felt cold, but Earth is still free. We were not conquered. No, we were not. Morrison's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because of them, because of the hollow circle. The name hung in the air like smoke. What is the hollow circle? Emily asked. They were a unit, humans only. No official name in any record. No photographs, no files. The soldiers who joined were volunteers. They knew they would never come home. They knew their names would be erased forever. Morrison touched the drawing on Emily's tablet. This symbol was their mark. The 3 circles meant something different to each of them. Some said it was the 3 planets they were protecting: Earth, Mars, and the Moon. Others said it meant birth, life, and death. The line through them all meant one thing: they had cut themselves off from normal life. They were no longer people. They were weapons. Emily's mouth was dry. What did they do? They stopped the invasion. Morrison's eyes were distant, like she was looking at something far away. The Corvan fleet came through our solar system like a storm. They expected to reach Earth in a week. They never made it past Mars. How? How could one unit stop 40,000 ships? They did not fight like soldiers, Emily. They fought like monsters. Morrison's hands were shaking. They boarded Corvan ships in the middle of the night. 1 person per ship. Just 1. They would move through the darkness like ghosts. They killed commanders in their sleep. They turned weapons against their own crews. They left messages painted in blood on the walls. Emily felt sick. Messages? The symbol. Always the symbol. 3 circles and a line. By the end, Corvan soldiers were killing themselves rather than face the hollow circle. They were too afraid to sleep, too afraid to close their eyes. Morrison took a deep breath. The war lasted 4 months. 18,000 Corvan ships were destroyed. The rest surrendered, not because they were beaten, because they were broken. The Corvan High Command sent a message to Earth begging for peace. They had one condition. What was the condition? They wanted Earth to promise that the Hollow Circle would never be released again. They wanted us to destroy every record, erase every name, pretend it had never happened. Morrison looked at Emily. And we agreed. That is why there are no files. That is why you cannot find anything. The Hollow Circle was buried, hidden, forgotten. Emily thought about Daniel Webb, the quiet man with the mop. The man who talked about belonging and fixed broken things. And Mr. Webb? If that man has that tattoo, then he is not a janitor. Morrison's voice was barely above a whisper. He is one of the most dangerous humans who ever lived. A ghost. A weapon that was supposed to be destroyed. Why would he be here? Why would he hide at the academy? I do not know. But I know one thing. Morrison gripped Emily's hand. You must not speak of this. Not to anyone. The Corvans pretend the war never happened. We pretend right along with them. That is the only reason we have peace. If anyone found out that a member of the Hollow Circle was still alive, still here. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Emily walked back to her quarters in a daze. The corridors were full of cadets laughing and talking. None of them knew what she knew. None of them understood what was hiding among them. She thought about Daniel Webb, his calm eyes, his steady hands, his gentle words. He had told her that belonging was something you decide for yourself. Now she understood what he meant. He had decided to stop being a weapon. He had decided to be a janitor, a helper, a quiet man who cleaned floors and watched the stars. But the weapon was still there, hidden under the skin, waiting in the darkness. And Emily wondered, what would make that weapon come out again? He sat in his private quarters, staring at a hologram on his desk. The hologram showed his family, his father in his general's uniform, his mother with her fleet commander medals, and his grandfather, Admiral Thresh the Elder, standing tall and proud in the center. But Victor was not looking at the medals or the uniforms. He was looking at his grandfather's eyes. Those eyes had always been strange, empty, haunted. Even when grandfather smiled, his eyes stayed cold and distant. Like he was always looking at something that nobody else could see. Victor had grown up hearing whispers. Late at night, when the adults thought the children were sleeping, they would talk about the old war. The war that was never supposed to be mentioned. The war that had broken something inside grandfather's mind. Admiral Thresh had been on the 3rd Fleet, He had commanded one of the great warships that went to conquer Earth. He was supposed to be a hero. He was supposed to return with victory. Instead, he came back with nightmares. Victor remembered sitting on grandfather's knee as a child. He remembered asking about the war. He remembered the way grandfather's face had changed, the color draining from his scales, the trembling in his claws. "Never speak of it," grandfather had said. "Never ask. There are things in the darkness that we do not discuss, things that should stay buried." Victor had not understood then, but he understood now. The symbol on the janitor's throat was the same symbol that grandfather had drawn in his private journal. Victor had found the journal after grandfather died. Page after page of the same mark, drawn over and over again. 3 circles, 1 line, drawn in shaky handwriting with notes that made no sense. They move through walls. They see in darkness. They do not make sound. They are not human. They cannot be human. The journal had given Victor nightmares for years, and now one of them was here. At the academy, pushing a cleaning cart and mopping floors. Victor did not believe it at first. He tried to tell himself it was a mistake, a coincidence, just an old tattoo that meant nothing, but the fear was there, deep in his blood, passed down from his grandfather like a disease. When Victor had seen that symbol, his body had reacted before his mind could think. He had run away like a scared child. The shame burned inside him. He was Victor Thresh. He was the best cadet at the academy. He came from a family of warriors. He was not supposed to be afraid of an old human with a mop. For 3 weeks, Victor watched Daniel Webb. He followed the janitor from a distance. He noted his schedule, his habits, his patterns. The old human woke up at 4 every morning. He cleaned until noon. He ate lunch alone. He fixed broken things in the afternoon. He went to sleep at 10. Nothing suspicious. Nothing dangerous. Just an old man doing an old job. But Victor was not fooled. He knew what was hiding under that calm surface. He knew what that symbol meant. And he knew that if he could prove it, the academy would have to act. The Hollow Circle was a war crime. Its members were criminals. If Victor exposed Daniel Webb, he would be a hero. He just needed proof. His chance came during the Combat Festival. The Combat Festival was the biggest event of the academy year. Cadets from all species would demonstrate their fighting skills for visiting dignitaries. There would be speeches and ceremonies and celebrations. Security would be focused on the main halls. The lower levels would be empty. Victor gathered his most loyal friends. 2 Corvins named Marcus and James, and a Threllian enforcer named Stone, a massive gray creature with arms like tree trunks. Tonight, Victor told them, we corner the human in the maintenance level. We make him show us what he really is. We record everything, and if he fights back, Marcus asked. Victor smiled. Then we have our proof. They waited until the festival was at its loudest. Then they slipped away from the crowds and went down to the maintenance level. They found Daniel Webb in a storage room, organizing cleaning supplies. "Hello, human," Victor said. Daniel turned around slowly. He looked at Victor. He looked at the others blocking the door. His expression did not change. "Good evening, cadets. Can I help you with something?" "You can help us with the truth." Victor stepped closer. "I know what you are. I know what that mark on your throat means. My grandfather told me stories. He showed me drawings. He had nightmares about your kind until the day he died." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he set down the supplies he was holding. "Your grandfather was on the 3rd Fleet. Yes, I am sorry for his pain." Daniel's voice was soft. "War hurts everyone, even the survivors. Do not pretend to be sorry." Victor's voice rose. "Do not pretend to be a gentle old man. I know what you did. I know what you are. Daniel looked at him with those calm, tired eyes. "What do you want, Victor?" "I want you to admit it. I want proof. I want the galaxy to know that a monster is hiding here. And then what? What happens after you expose me?" "Justice." Victor bared his teeth. "Justice for everyone your kind killed." Daniel nodded slowly. Then he began to roll up his sleeves. "You want to know what this mark means?" he said. "It means I made a promise. 20 years ago, I promised that the killing was over, that I would never raise my hand in violence again. Wise. But I made another promise too." Daniel's eyes met Victor's. Something changed in them. The tiredness faded. The calm deepened. And underneath, something else appeared. Something old and cold and terrible. "I promised that if anyone tried to hurt the people I protect, I would break the first promise." The lights in the storage room flickered. Victor felt the fear rise in his chest. The same fear his grandfather had felt. The same fear that had been passed down through blood and bone. "You have 3 seconds to leave," Daniel said. Victor roared and lunged forward. What happened next took 11 seconds. Victor threw the first punch. Daniel was not there. He had moved without seeming to move, sliding sideways like smoke. Marcus and James attacked together. Daniel's hands flickered. There were sounds like breaking sticks. Both Corvins collapsed, their arms twisted at wrong angles. Stone charged like a mountain. Daniel stepped into the charge, not away from it. His palm touched Stone's chest. The Threllian flew backward and hit the wall so hard that the metal dented. Victor scrambled to his feet and swung his claws. Daniel caught his wrist. Victor felt pressure on a nerve he did not know he had. His whole arm went numb. His legs buckled. He fell to his knees, looking up at Daniel Webb. The old janitor stood over him like a shadow. His face was still calm. His breathing had not changed. He had not even broken a sweat. "I could have killed all of you," Daniel said quietly. "I could have done it in 3 seconds instead of 11. But that is not who I am anymore." He released Victor's wrist. "Go home, cadet. Tend to your friends. And remember this, I am not your enemy. I am just a man who wants to live in peace." Daniel picked up his cleaning supplies and walked out of the storage room. Victor sat on the floor, surrounded by his groaning friends, and finally understood what his grandfather had been so afraid of. The Hollow Circle was not just a story. It was not just a nightmare. It was real, and it was still alive. Security teams rushed through the corridors. Alarms flashed red and yellow. Cadets were ordered to stay in their quarters. Nobody knew exactly what had happened, but rumors spread like fire. 4 students had been found in the maintenance level, injured, terrified, talking about a ghost. Commander Morrison arrived at the scene with a security team. She found Victor Thresh sitting against the wall, his eyes empty and his face gray. His friends were being carried away on stretchers. "What happened?" Morrison demanded. Victor looked up at her. He was shaking. His voice came out in a whisper. "He could have killed us. He could have killed us 100 times over, but he did not." Morrison closed her eyes. She knew what this meant. The secret was out. The ghost had shown itself. Within hours, Confederation intelligence arrived. They came in gray suits and asked questions in quiet voices. They looked through security recordings. They searched Daniel Webb's quarters. They found nothing except books and a small plant. They found Daniel himself sitting on his bed, waiting. "You knew this day would come," the lead investigator said. His name was Agent Thomas, and his face showed no emotion. "I hoped it would not." Daniel's voice was tired. "I just wanted to be useful, to help instead of hurt. The Corvin Assembly is already making demands. They want you handed over. They are calling it justice." Daniel smiled faintly. "And you are going to give me to them?" Agent Thomas shifted uncomfortably. That decision is above my level. Let me make it easier for you. Daniel stood up. Despite his age, despite his worn clothes, there was something in the way he moved that made everyone in the room take a step backward. I came to this academy for a reason. There is a human girl here who needed to see that our species can be more than what they expect. We can choose peace. We can build instead of destroy. He walked toward the door. Nobody tried to stop him. If the Corvins want justice, they can have it, but not from you. From me, I will go to their assembly myself. I will let them decide what to do with me. Agent Thomas looked uncertain. We cannot just let you leave. You cannot stop me either. Daniel said it simply, without pride or threat. It was just a fact. But I'm not running. I am surrendering. There's a difference. He left the room. He walked through the corridors of the academy, past the security teams and the confused cadets. Nobody tried to grab him. Nobody tried to fight. They just watched him go. Emily was waiting at the main airlock. Mr. Webb. Her voice cracked. Where are you going? To face what I have been running from. He stopped in front of her. I should have done this years ago. You do not have to go. You could hide. You could fight. I have been hiding for 20 years, Emily. And fighting is what got me into this mess in the first place. He smiled at her. It was a real smile, warm and tired and sad. I told you that belonging is something you decide for yourself. Now I have to decide who I want to be. For real. Forever. What if they kill you? Then I will die as the man I chose to become. Not the weapon they made me. Tears ran down Emily's face. I do not understand. Why did you come here? Why pretend to be a janitor? Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Because I needed to believe that I could change. That the past does not have to control the future. He put his hand on her shoulder. And I needed you to see it. To know that no matter what the galaxy thinks of humans, we get to decide our own worth. He turned and walked toward the shuttle bay. Mr. Webb? Emily called after him. He paused. What was your rank? In the hollow circle? Daniel was quiet for a long time. The lights hummed. The station breathed. They did not give us ranks, he finally said. We did not have names or numbers or titles. We were just tools. But if I had to pick a word for what I was... He looked back at her. I suppose you could call me their commander. The shuttle doors opened. He stepped inside. The doors closed behind him. Emily watched through the window as the shuttle detached from the station. She watched it grow smaller and smaller until it was just another dot among the stars. Then she went back to her quarters and cried. 3 days later, the shuttle arrived at the Corvin homeworld. Daniel Webb walked into the high assembly chamber alone. The room was massive, filled with thousands of Corvins, warriors, nobles, politicians, families of those who had died in the war. They stared at him with hatred and fear. He stood in the center of the chamber, small and old and human. I killed your people, he said. His voice was calm, but it carried through the whole room. I did terrible things. Things that can never be fixed or forgotten. I do not ask for forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it. The chamber was silent. But I want you to understand something. He raised his head. I stopped. 20 years ago, I made a choice. I decided that the killing was over. That I would spend the rest of my life building instead of destroying. Murmurs spread through the crowd. I have fixed machines and cleaned floors and helped people in small ways. I have tried to be kind. I have tried to be gentle. I cannot erase what I did. But I can choose what I do next. He looked around the room, at all the faces watching him, at all the pain and anger and fear. I am not asking you to forgive the man I was. I am asking you to judge the man I tried to become. The assembly deliberated for 6 hours. Victor Thresh watched from the gallery. He thought about his grandfather. He thought about the nightmares. He thought about the old man in the storage room who could have killed him but chose not to. When the assembly returned, the speaker rose. Daniel Webb of Earth, this assembly has reached a decision. The speaker's voice echoed through the chamber. We do not forgive. We cannot forget. The wounds you caused will heal slowly, if they heal at all. Daniel nodded. He was ready for whatever came next. But we recognize that holding on to hatred serves no one. You have shown us something we did not expect. You have shown us that change is possible, that even weapons can choose to become something else. The chamber held its breath. You are free to go. Leave Corvin's space and do not return. Daniel bowed his head. Thank you. He walked out of the chamber. Behind him, he heard Victor Thresh calling his name. Human. Wait. Daniel turned. Victor stood there, his scales pale, his eyes uncertain. I have hated your kind my whole life, Victor said. My grandfather taught me to hate. My family taught me to hate. I thought it was strength. And now? Victor was quiet for a moment. Now I think maybe it was just fear. Fear dressed up as anger. He looked at Daniel. You could have killed me. Why did you not? Because killing you would have made me the thing your grandfather was afraid of, and I do not want to be that anymore. Victor nodded slowly. He did not say thank you. He did not apologize. But something in his eyes had changed. Daniel returned to Station Orion 7. One last time. Emily met him at the docking bay. She was not crying anymore. She stood tall and straight, like a soldier. You came back, just to say goodbye. Daniel smiled at her. My work here is done, but yours is just beginning. Where will you go? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can keep fixing things. He looked at her with pride. You are going to do great things, Emily Torres. Not because you are human, because you are you. She hugged him. He hugged her back. Then he got on a shuttle and flew away into the stars. Emily watched him go. She thought about everything she had learned. About war and peace. About fear and courage. About the choices that make us who we are. She went back to her quarters. She opened her books. She started to study. 10 years later, Emily Torres became the first human admiral in the Galactic Confederation. On her desk, she kept a small model of a cleaning cart. People asked her about it sometimes. She would smile and say it was a gift from an old friend. She never told them the whole story. Some secrets are better kept. And somewhere, on a quiet planet at the edge of known space, an old man tended a garden and watched the stars. He had no weapons anymore. No missions. No nightmares. Just peace. Finally, after all those years, Daniel Webb had found what he was looking for. He had found himself.